Good evening. This is a scene in Alexandria Pride. I was there today, and just run through a few pictures before I start to talk. Pride. That's a statue at Freddy's Beach Bar. I think that's a character from Clive Barker's The Magica, and more of that sculpture, and then a little demonstration for Freddy's today, and then here's some more scenes from Alexandria, the Alexandria Pride. Um, Interesting red leaf plant, like from another planet or something. It's a neighborhood nearby. Now, this is downtown Richmond in July of 1960, 19 of 2023. I'm sorry, July of 2023, when I was just driving down. That in this building right here is where I think I was inducted into the Army on February 8th, 1968. And I say on page 104 of my Do Ask, Do Tell book, right here. And I'll go right back to that. I say on page 104, my Freedom of Information file from NIH shows that National Institutes of Health reported on me just before my induction. Now, it may have been right after, um, because I probably had to answer a medical questionnaire and probably mentioned the psychiatric history. And again, after my transfer to Fort Eustis that's out of the Pentagon, later in 1968. NIH spoke of identity confusion and of sexual defenses, but never mentioned that forbidden word homosexual. It suggested that my difficulty was more significant and personal than in job performance areas. Furthermore, NIH refused to comment on whether I was reliable enough to hold a security clearance. It appears odd on the forms that the military would ask a civilian health agency to take responsibility for an area such as security, very much a matter of military deference. It's page 104 and 105. Um, and I'll just also, this from this book on that site. Um, but I just want to talk about a couple of things, a couple of ideas. And one of these was that this whole idea of identity confusion. Remember, I had told the dean in that meeting on Black Friday night that I saw myself as a latent homosexual. And what this thing may be referring to is that calling myself that was actually, I was actually pinning a label on myself and calling myself as if I were another gender. In other words, in the sense um, that I probably didn't have sex with women and probably wouldn't use my biology to produce children. So that made me, in a logical sense, another gender. That's the kind of thinking, and that may be what they're referring to. If I'm another gender, then theoretically I can't be in a dorm with other real men. That might have been what they were thinking in 1961. Or, I also had other problems just being away from home the first time. The nasal allergies, the medications in the room, that was maybe an issue. Just being not having a room to yourself, that could have been more of an issue than I thought. Of course, that's an issue later on when you get into the military, but by then I was adjusted to it, and I actually adjusted at the University of Kansas in the 60s. But I just wanted to mention that idea that might have been on their minds, as gender identity idea might have been on their minds then more than we think it was. I'll just mention a couple other things. We talk here a lot about heteronormativity, the idea that ideally a man is supposed to marry, have sex within marriage, and produce children, and the same for a woman, and that's normative behavior. And I've talked about that before. We also talk about what's normal behavior, what's normally mental health behavior. And of course, saying something is normative puts other people at a disadvantage. I realize that, which is why we have a rights issue and have an equality issue, is as HRC puts it, because it puts everybody else at a disadvantage when something is called normative. There's also an idea in mental health of what's normal behavior, what's a normie. And we're pretty well to the point that gay adults, gay men and lesbians, in the conventional senses, we norm them when they have jobs and pay their bills and function well and function with civility and um, are now sort of thought of as normie. And particularly though, a normal mental health profile would mean that an individual is prepared to have dependence if there is a need for the person to, or if there's a family emergency, or if there's a sibling situation, or prepared to take care of elderly parents, filial responsibility. I was in that situation. Or if something comes up, is prepared to chip in and help with taking care of other people, or even having dependents when the situation calls for it, or even joining things that take risks when there's a real danger to the entire community, which there may be in coming years. Our society is becoming more unstable. That's part of mental health, is being able to have dependence, even if you didn't have your own children. And I just wanted to emphasize that. Most of the practical controversy today over gender identity and self ID and the way it developed, whatever you think of it and whatever the problems with it are, particularly some of the things that are going on, with minors, whatever the problems are, um, it seems to stem in part from the fact that gender nonconforming youth, as I was when I was in grade school and middle school, and it got a little better in high school, but with puberty, but gender nonconforming youth, typically, and it got much better in the military, by the way, but gender nonconforming youth typically are at a disadvantage. They may be technically within a particular recorded one of the two basic biological sexes and recorded as such, but among that people, as a member of either one or the other, they may be at a serious disadvantage when compared to most other people. Statistically, that's almost inevitably going to happen to some people. So that's an incentive for people to want to make it better. Um, and so I just thought I would mention that that idea is something that's driving a lot of the content, the controversy over gender identity. So that's what I have today. And things are going on. I'll pretty soon be talking about um, more about the film idea and about why there's been so much emphasis on selling books recently, since about the middle of 2022, especially why these books are very, very old, most of them, 2000, then 2002, then 2014. Actually, the first printing of the first book was 1997. Why so much emphasis? We'll be talking about that pretty soon. But I do thank you for listening today.